Hello, my friends. Hello, and welcome once again to stately Vaughan Manor, where I've been driven into the back of the manor because the place where I normally film is they're talking people. There are people talking and socializing in the place where I normally would film my videos. So I've been driven back here because I thought, you know what? I'm going to make a video tonight. I don't care what's going on. So that does mean, though, that I got stuck in this back room without even an undead mummy to keep me company, which is sad. But here I am, doing the best I can under the circumstances. So today, let's talk about a TBR. My TBR for April. April's TBR. So, my TBR last month, I got to some of this stuff. My TBRs are more like, what do they call it now? The piles of possibilities. These are piles of possibilities. These are books that I would like to get to all of them, but frankly, probably won't. And a couple of these, at least, are books that I wanted to get to this month, but, it's not going to happen. Also, there might be a spontaneous book that'll just show up during the month that I really decide I want to read, no matter what's on my TBR. You know how that goes because I'm so unreliable. Anyway, so let's talk about the books that I would like to read in April. First of all, one thing I know I'm going to read. We'll get this out of the way now. I know you guys all love comic books. Thor. I am reading every issue of Thor. The first run of Thor, which began in the early 60s and lasted into the mid-90s. And this is the next thing I'm going to read. I finished the 11th epic collection of Thor this morning, and so I will be starting on this tomorrow morning. This is the 12th epic collection of Thor. It has issues from 1982 to 1983. Now, these are the last issues that were published before Walt Simonson returned to Thor. And then he had his huge and successful run on Thor, which has become legendary among those of us who like comic books. Walt Simonson's run on Thor, his second run on Thor, is considered possibly the greatest series of Thor stories ever told. I still think the Stan Lee, Jack Kirby era is, I think that's the era of the greatest Thor stories. But you know what? Maybe I'll change my mind after reading Walt Simonson's stuff. But first, I have to go through these stories. And first of all, Keith Pollard leaves the book. I think he's in the first story. He's the artist. Keith Pollard does the first issue in this book, but then he leaves, and then the art for the rest of this epic collection doesn't look so hot. So, not the best time on Thor, probably 1982 through 1983, but we'll see. But I'm definitely going to read it, and I will still be reading this at least the first week of April, and possibly longer than that. So we'll see. So for Roger's Cheap Old Book Club, and I hate to talk about Roger's Cheap Old Book Club when Roger isn't actually here. That's unfortunate. But for Roger's Cheap Old Book Club, in April, it is time for Raphael Sabatini's Captain Blood. Captain Blood. I did read this book once before. I read it when I was in high school. And if I'm remembering right, I got it from the high school library. And I remember there were like pictures in it, and the other high schoolers had drawn all over the pictures, and it was a mess of a copy. But I remember the book being really good. And I loved the movie. I saw the movie 100 times when I was younger. So for Roger's Cheap Old Book Club, it is Raphael Sabatini's Captain Blood, which also fits in with a booktube event that's happening in April that a bunch of booktubers are doing. Book Time with Elvis, Greg at Another Bibliophile Reads, Murder and Mayhem, I think.
Mystery and mayhem, dumbass.
There's a bunch of booktubers doing it. Spring into Adventure. All about adventure stories. And there's like weekly prompts and all that business. I'm not going to do that. But Roger's cheap old book club pick, Captain Blood, just fits right in with that event. And they're also doing a read along for Spring into Adventure. And I will most likely read that book because it's She by H. Rider Haggard, which is one of my favorite books. And it's been a long time since I've read this book. So She by H. Rider Haggard, that's the read along that they're doing for Spring into Adventure. And I probably will read it because this book is really, really, really good. Didn't this have an illustration? Yeah, this has an illustration in the. This is not how I picture She. But this is a really good book, so I will probably read this. But there are a couple things that I didn't get to this month that I really do want to read. And those two things are Robert E. Howard's Cormac Macart. Cormac Macart. This is the edition that was from Bayan's Robert E. Howard Library, which I did a whole video on this series of books. These are the books that kept Robert E. Howard's fiction alive during the 1990s. An excellent series of mass market paperback books from Bayan. Great stuff. And this is actually the first volume, which has all the Cormac Macart stories that Robert E. Howard did. And he didn't write too much about this character. But it also has a story by David Drake in here as well. Famous science fiction, military science fiction for the most part, writer David Drake. I didn't get to this month, and I really wanted to, so I'm going to try. It all depends on how much time I have. You know, you never know. This month has been a complete disaster. Everything has gone wrong this month. You know, everything. But here's hoping next month is better. So hopefully I'll get to this. But another thing I really, really want to get to is I want to get back to Amber. I want to get back to Amber because I have to read Signs of Chaos. That's the next one I have to read. Yeah, Signs of Chaos. This is the great book of Amber by Roger Zelazny, and I've read a lot of it, but I've still got 3 books in this series to read. Still got 3 books, and I really want to get to the next one because the last book sort of ended on a cliffhanger. And these have been great. These have been great books. And Grammaticus guilted me into reading this series. And I'm very glad Grammaticus, he has a magnificent booktube channel. I'll try to link it down below. He guilted me into reading this. And I'm glad he did because it's magnificent. It's wonderful. And if I don't read it this month, when am I going to get to it? Let me tell you, because, you know, I've just got one booktube event after another coming up. And so April might be my last free month. And it's not even free because there's Spring into Adventure and I'm reading stuff for that. But then we have Horror Mayhem. And then we've got June on the Range. Then we've got Rocket Summer in July. Then we've got Garb August. And then we've got Sumerian September. And then I've got Varney the Vampire in October. And that's probably going to take up the whole month and then some. November, I don't think there's anything going on, but I'll still be reading Varney that month probably because that book is really, really long. And in December, it's probably going to be December in Dunwich, which is going to be when I read all of H.P. Lovecraft because it's been a long time since I've read H.P. Lovecraft. And I'm feeling like I've got to read Lovecraft because it's been a few years. I haven't really sat down and read the whole of Lovecraft since before I got on BookTube, which was 100 years ago or something. It's been a while. So as you can see, this year is shaping. I said last year that I wasn't going to do that many BookTube reading events. That's what I said. I'm full of crap. Anyway, busy. I'm busy. Now, there's still a couple other things I would like to read this month that I probably won't, but I'd like to. I'd like to get a jump on the Lone Ranger because I've got all these Lone Ranger books from Steve Donahue. He sent me a bunch of Lone Ranger books, which, of course, I'll read some in June for June on the Range, but I'd like to read some Lone Ranger before that since I've got all these books, and it's adventure, so it would be great for spring into adventure, as would the next spider novel I have to read. This over-the-top pulp hero, The Spider, the next spider novel I have to read is the fourth one that was published, City of Flaming Shadows. City of Flaming Shadows. I would like to get back to the spider, and I probably will sneak this in because, adventure, and also it's really short. So it shouldn't take too long to read. Probably won't read all of this stuff that I just showed you, but I hope I do. Maybe I'll have a great month with lots of time and it'll all go great. Anyway, that's my TBR for April. Hopefully next time I see you, I will be in a different room and accompanied by my mummy friend, Roger Hotep. Okay, guys, I will catch you next time.